Before sunrise, before sirens, before a single official word, Burkina Faso felt it again. No tanks rolled, no generals appeared on television, no declaration echoed through Ouagadougou, and yet, something moved through the country like a shockwave in the dark. Phones lit up, voices dropped, messages spread with a dangerous calm. This wasn't chaos breaking out, it was something colder. A coup that never appeared, but was already being treated as real. Was this control? Or the most sophisticated warning yet, comment now, because what happened next only deepened the mystery. By the time most people woke up, the story had already settled into the national bloodstream. Not as breaking news, but as accepted reality. An attempt had been stopped, they said, not fought, not crushed in public, intercepted quietly, before daylight could force explanations. In Burkina Faso, history makes this believable. Power here doesn't always fall with noise anymore. Sometimes it slips, sometimes it pauses, and sometimes it's stopped before it even announces itself. Do you think silence makes a threat more dangerous? Say it below, because this silence spoke volumes. What made this moment different wasn't evidence. It was timing. The absence of spectacle wasn't reassuring, it was unsettling. In the past, coups arrived with gunfire and radio announcements. This one arrived as certainty without proof. Rumors didn't ask permission, they didn't wait for confirmation, they moved faster than institutions ever could, and in a country trained by instability, speed matters more than detail. Was this vigilance, or conditioning? Drop your take, because the reaction mattered more than the rumor itself. The alleged target was never officially named, but everyone knew who the whispers pointed toward. Ibrahim Traoré. The narrative spreading online didn't describe a dramatic confrontation. It described planning rooms exposed, networks mapped, and people removed quietly. No images, no trials, no explanation. Just the implication that the state saw everything before it became visible. That framing wasn't accidental. It projected dominance without firing a shot. Was this strength or a performance of it? Comment below, because perception just became power. What followed was even more revealing. There was no rush to deny the story, no urgent clarification. Silence held, and in Burkina Faso, silence is never neutral. It's read as discretion, and discretion in matters of security is often interpreted as confirmation. The vacuum didn't weaken the narrative, it hardened it. People didn't ask if it was true, they asked what it meant. Do you think silence stabilizes, or fuels fear? Say it now, because the streets answered before officials did. Because before any statement, people gathered, not in panic, not in confusion, with intent. Flags appeared, chants echoed, support was declared visibly, physically, decisively. This wasn't a reaction to violence. It was a reaction to the idea of interference. Whoever might have tried or might try was being warned in advance. The public wasn't waiting to see who would win, they were choosing early. Is that unity? Or pressure? Drop your opinion, because this changes the rules. This moment exposed something deeper about how power now functions in Burkina Faso. Legitimacy no longer waits to be challenged, it moves first. Defense begins socially, not administratively. When civilians mobilize before verification, they narrow the space for uncertainty. And when uncertainty disappears, so does neutrality. Silence becomes suspicious. Hesitation becomes a signal. Is this protection, or permanent alert mode? Comment below, because this tension is the real story. The coup that never appeared didn't need to succeed to have an impact. It tested the system, and the system responded instantly. Not with force, but with alignment. Not with transparency, but with speed. This is governance built on anticipation, not reaction. Threats don't need to materialize. They only need to feel plausible, and in a country shaped by repeated disruption, plausibility is enough to move crowds. Does that make the system stronger or more fragile? Say it, because both can be true. Here's the uncomfortable part. A system that survives by constant readiness doesn't relax. Calm doesn't mean peace, it means danger is being managed quietly, all the time. Stability becomes something you perform daily, not something you reach. And when every pause feels risky, speed replaces scrutiny. The question stops being, is this true? And becomes, what if we hesitate? Is that sustainable? Comment now because this is where the future gets complicated. This episode didn't introduce a new crisis. It confirmed a new logic. Power no longer needs to show itself to be effective. Control doesn't announce it absorbs. The coup that never appeared still reshaped behavior, loyalty, and fear. And that's why it mattered, because if silence can move a nation, imagine what the next signal will do. Was this the end of a threat or a rehearsal for the next one? Drop your final take because the next silence could be even louder. Phones buzzed before officials spoke, and in Burkina Faso, that timing changed everything. Long before any statement, denial, or confirmation could form, belief had already moved. Messages flashed across screens in the dark, short, confident, almost casual. Something had happened or almost happened, and in a country shaped by repeated shocks, almost, is sometimes enough to trigger action. This wasn't information spreading, it was instinct activating. Do you think belief should ever move faster than the state? Comment now, because this gap is where power now lives. Burkina Faso didn't wake up to news. It woke up to certainty without evidence. That certainty didn't come from officials or institutions, it came from memory. Years of coups, coups, and sudden reversals trained citizens to recognize patterns before explanations arrive. When the phones buzzed, people didn't ask who said it. They asked what it meant. The state hadn't spoken yet, but society already had. Is this vigilance? Or trauma repeating itself? Drop your take, because history was doing the talking here. This is what makes rumors dangerous in high alert nations. They don't float, they land. In commerce systems, a rumor waits to be tested. In Burkina Faso, it's tested through reaction. The moment the story framed the situation as an intercepted threat, people began to move mentally and then physically. Markets slowed, conversations shifted, eyes watched the streets, all without a single verified fact. Do you think experience makes people wiser or more reactive? Say it below, because this reaction reshaped the moment. Social media didn't invent the tension, it accelerated it. WhatsApp messages, voice notes, short posts, none of them detailed, none of them sourced, but all of them aligned. That alignment mattered more than accuracy. When multiple channels repeat the same idea, it feels true even without proof. And once belief synchronizes, it becomes action. Ready? Was this digital unity? Or collective pressure? Comment now because platforms just became political infrastructure. What followed exposed the real conflict not between factions, but between speed and process. Institutions move carefully. They verify, calculate, and weigh consequences. Belief doesn't. Belief moves at the speed of fear and memory. By the time the state could have spoken, the public had already decided how to interpret the silence. Silence wasn't read as absence, it was read as discretion. And discretion, in security matters, feels like confirmation. Do you think the state lost control or avoided escalation? Drop your opinion, because that choice still divides observers. Then came the streets, not chaos, not panic. Presence. People gathered with flags and slogans, signaling loyalty before any contest could appear. This wasn't about defending against violence, it was about rejecting the idea of interference itself. The public didn't wait to see who would act, they acted first. In doing so, they narrowed the space for ambiguity. Is early mobilization strength, or does it silence questions? Comment below, because this moment changed the rules of engagement. This is where perception overtook facts completely. The alleged threat no longer needed proof. The response gave it weight. Once civilians mobilize, the narrative shifts from "did this happen?" to "what are we defending?" And that's a powerful transition. It turns rumors into tests of loyalty. Neutrality becomes visible. Silence becomes readable. Do you think this protects stability or locks society into permanent alert mode? Say it because the cost comes later. In a high-alert nation, belief doesn't wait for permission. That's the uncomfortable truth this episode revealed. The people didn't overthrow the state, they insulated it, but insulation has a price. When perception drives action, mistakes become harder to correct. If every rumor triggers alignment, hesitation starts to look like betrayal. And once that logic sets in, the speed of reaction matters more than the truth of the claim. Is that sustainable governance? Comment now, because this question won't go away. This wasn't just about one rumor, it was about a system shaped by anticipation. Power now operates in advance, and so does society. Threats don't need to arrive loudly. They only need to feel plausible, and in Burkina Faso, plausibility is powerful. The episode showed how quickly belief can mobilize protection and how easily fear can become policy. Did the people protect stability or surrender it to fear? Drop your final take, because the next rumor may decide more than votes. The streets filled before any statement was released, and that was the point. No press conference, no emergency broadcast, no official confirmation. Yet bodies were already moving, flags already raised, voices already choosing sides. In Burkina Faso, this wasn't confusion, it was instinct. The public didn't wait for security forces to speak because experience had taught them that waiting is dangerous. This wasn't just reaction, it was preemption. Is this people power saving the state or replacing it? Drop your take now, because this shift changes everything. What you're witnessing here is not chaos, but conditioning. Years of instability rewired the national reflex. Coups no longer arrive with tanks first. They arrive as silence, rumors, and whispers. And in that environment, hesitation feels like vulnerability. Citizens have learned that by the time institutions move, outcomes may already be locked in. So when the phones buzzed, the calculation was simple. Act early or risk being overrun by events. Do you think this instinct makes the country safer or permanently anxious? Comment below, because this psychology defines the moment. This is how civilians became the first line of defense. Not armed, not organized by the state, but aligned. Public loyalty, displayed fast and visibly, became a deterrent. Anyone watching inside or outside the country saw the message immediately. Whatever was attempted would not unfold quietly. Power, in that moment, shifted away from secrecy. The streets removed the ambiguity. Was this solidarity, or a warning shot to dissent? Say it in the comments, because the meaning depends on where you stand. What makes this powerful is timing. Mobilization didn't follow proof. It followed belief. And belief moved faster than institutions ever could. This reversed the traditional security order. Instead of the state calming the public insulated the state. That inversion matters. It shows a system where legitimacy isn't passive anymore, it activates. And once legitimacy moves first, it reshapes the battlefield before any contest begins. Is this a new form of stability or a dangerous shortcut? Drop your thoughts, because shortcuts always come with trade-offs. The conflict here wasn't between rival factions. It was between speed and verification. Public alignment won that contest. Once people gathered, the narrative stopped being about whether something happened and became about what must be defended. That's when neutrality disappeared. Silence became readable. Waiting became suspicious. And in that atmosphere, pressure replaces persuasion. Do you think pressure strengthens unity or crushes nuance? Comment now, because nuance is the first casualty. This model of deterrence is brutally effective. Potential challengers now face a higher cost before they even move. They're not just confronting institutions, they're confronting crowds already aligned against disruption. The battlefield shifts from execution to anticipation, from action to perception, from force to optics. He came for sovereignty and found it guarded by civilians, not soldiers. Is that resilience? Or a system under permanent strain? Drop your prediction, because the strain shows up later, but there's a shadow side to this power. When unity activates before verification, mistakes don't get time to breathe. Every rumor feels urgent. Every pause feels intentional. The public becomes both shield and censor, but censors can misfire. In this environment, fear doesn't need confirmation to mobilize bodies, and once bodies move, rolling them back is hard. Do you think this model can correct itself or only escalate? Say it below, because correction requires space. What unfolded wasn't just a response to an alleged threat. It was a rehearsal, a demonstration of how Burkina Faso now handles danger. Stability no longer waits to be challenged. It deploys itself early. That keeps the system standing, but always tense, always ready, always watching. Calm no longer means safety. It means vigilance is working. Is a country like this truly stable or just permanently braced? Comment now, because this question defines the future. This story doesn't end with the streets emptying. It lingers in what this behavior normalizes. When public loyalty becomes automatic, power consolidates quickly, but consolidation narrows space. Over time, stability begins to depend on constant alignment, not resolution. That's effective until it isn't. Is this unity or pressure disguised as patriotism? Drop your final take, because this model is spreading, and the next test may come faster than the last. Calm no longer means peace, it means threats are being managed out of sight. In Burkina Faso, silence isn't reassuring anymore, it's operational. No sirens, no announcements, no visible panic, just the quiet understanding that something may already be unfolding behind closed doors. This wasn't just a moment of control, it was a signal. The country now lives in a state where danger doesn't announce itself, and survival depends on staying ahead of what never fully appears. Do you think this is strength or exhaustion in disguise? Drop your take, because this mindset changes everything. What you're seeing is a nation conditioned by repetition. Alerts didn't arrive once, they arrived again and again. Rumors, interceptions, foiled plots, whispered threats, each one trained the public and the state to expect disruption as the default setting. Over time, vigilance stopped feeling temporary and became permanent. The abnormal became normal, and when tension becomes routine, people stop asking when things will calm down, they ask how fast they can respond. Is this adaptation? Or a warning sign? Comment below, because adaptation has limits. This is where anticipation replaced evidence. Decisions no longer wait for full confirmation, because waiting feels like surrender. Speed beats scrutiny, reaction beats reflection. In this system, a threat doesn't need to be proven publicly to shape behavior, it only needs to be plausible. That's a powerful form of control, but also a fragile one. When plausibility drives action, mistakes carry weight. Do you think speed protects stability or quietly erodes trust? Say it now, because trust is the hidden currency here. Stability itself has changed meaning. It's no longer about resolution or closure. It's about continuity. As long as power holds, movement continues, and disruption doesn't surface, the system declares success. But that success is performative. It must be demonstrated constantly. Every intercepted threat reinforces the logic. Every public alignment confirms the rhythm. Stay ready, stay united, don't pause. Do you think a system like this can ever afford to pause? Drop your thoughts, because pausing may now feel dangerous. This is the cost of living in survival mode. The country endures, but it never rests. Institutions adapt to speed rather than debate. Society adapts to reaction rather than patience. Politics becomes defense, not deliberation. He came for sovereignty and found it guarded by anticipation, not argument. That may deter challengers, but it also narrows space. When everything feels urgent, nuance disappears. Is urgency protecting the nation or shrinking its future options? Comment below, because options matter later. There's also a psychological toll that doesn't make headlines. Permanent readiness rewires how people experience calm. Quiet moments don't feel safe, they feel suspicious. Every silence invites interpretation. Every delay feels intentional. Over time, this creates a low-level tension that never fully drains. Unity holds, but it's tight. Strong but strained, how long can a society operate like this before fatigue sets in? Drop your prediction, because fatigue doesn't announce itself either. The system works because it feeds on its own success. Each avoided crisis justifies the next early response. Each early response reinforces the belief that threats are everywhere. That loop is efficient but self-sustaining. It doesn't need new enemies to stay active. Anticipation alone keeps it running, and once a system learns to function best under pressure, releasing pressure becomes risky. Do you think Burkina Faso can dial this back, or is it locked in? Say it now, because locking in changes trajectories. What makes this moment historic isn't collapse, it's consolidation. Power hasn't fallen apart, it has tightened, but tight systems snap differently than loose ones. They don't crumble loudly, they fracture quietly. That's the paradox of permanent readiness. It prevents sudden shocks but accumulates slow strain. Stability survives, but flexibility fades. Is flexibility a luxury this moment can't afford? Comment below, because history punishes rigid systems. This story doesn't ask whether Burkina Faso is strong. It asks how strength is being measured. Is strength the ability to react instantly or the ability to relax without fear? Right now, survival mode wins. It delivers order, it blocks disruption, but it also reshapes the future into a narrow corridor where every step is calculated. Can a country ever step out of survival mode without collapsing? Say it below, because Burkina Faso may be the test case, and the world is watching.